Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing my March wrap up. All of the books I read in March. I feel like everyone's reading pace is different. I would say this month was very slow for me. I read a total of 10 books this month. Towards the end is kind of when I wasn't feeling the best, just mentally and everything. These last like 2.5 weeks, so my reading pace slowed down tremendously. I actually haven't read in 2 days, like a day and a half. I haven't read it since 2 days ago. Anyway, I hate it, but I'm giving myself time because I don't want to get in a slump. Hopefully April will be a little bit better, but right now it's not looking great. This month, in March, I read 10 books, so we're going to talk about them today. I'll give like a brief description of how I felt about them. Some of them had videos with them, so if they did, I'll put that in the iCard for you to check out because you get to see more of my like raw reactions. But I'll be sure to give you my ratings and if I recommend the book, if I don't, all the stuff. So let's get into the first book. So I went into March while I was still reading Magnolia Parks and the Long Way Home. I finished this book, I think like on the second day of March. I had already been like almost all the way through it, but I finished it up this month and I ended up rating this a very strong 4.5. I loved this book. It was so fun. I loved being able to see the characters again after reading Daisy Hates. And we got so much more information. So I love this book. It was chunky, but I don't think it took me very long to read. I did end up annotating / just like underlining all of the books, and I think, no, I did. Magnolia Parks, I started with the newer covers, and then I bought all of the traditional, like original covers. So I haven't updated my annotations in the first Magnolia Parks book, but every book after that I have underlined. I've put little comments that I might have had because I knew I would just love this book, and I truly did. I feel like it's such a roller coaster, and while I'm reading this, anytime I get happy, I can just like expect to be disappointed again, like just brutally hurt and everything. So it's a roller coaster, but I would definitely read this book again. Like, that's how much I loved it. So strong 4.5 stars for this one. So of course I had to go straight into Daisy Hates and The Great Undoing. I knew this book was going to be amazing because of everything I've heard and how much I enjoyed the other books. I was emotionally and utterly destroyed by the end of this book. I loved it. 5 stars. I would read this again. It's not even that long, but my heart, oh my gosh, it was like ripped out of my chest in the best way possible. I loved this book. I love the cover of this book, everything. 5 stars. I would 100% read this again, and I definitely recommend reading these books. Then we went straight into Magnolia Parks Into the Dark. I was really glad that I didn't have to wait. I know a lot of people had to wait, obviously, because they were reading the books as they were coming out, but for me, this book was already out. It was a big book. I felt like it was taking me a long time to get through, but it wasn't because I didn't enjoy it. I just think it's a thick book. It's a lot to take in. There's a lot of story points. There's a lot of twists and turns, up and down, everything. 5 stars for this book. I felt like it was an amazing end to Magnolia and BJ's story. I do want to preface, if you guys don't know about these books, they are not healthy books. They're very toxic, and I've mentioned this before, and I'm sure you guys, if you know about the books, you know this. It's toxic relationship-wise and everything like that. I almost think that I'm reading, but it's like playing as like a show in my mind. But I love it. I love it. Give me more. I adored this book and I loved the ending. I felt like it was perfect. I cried. And now I can't wait for the Daisy Hates books. I mean, I'm like holding on for dear life because I just need more. So 5 stars for Into the Dark. Highly recommend this whole series. It's very fun, it's very entertaining, and it goes fast. After I finished Into the Dark, I actually ended up doing a video of reading fantasy for a week. So the next few books I'm going to talk about are fantasy books that I read in that video. Again, if you want more of my opinions and my thoughts on the books, I'm going to link that video because you get more from it than you will from this video, but I will talk about if I enjoyed the book and what I rated it. The first fantasy book I started off with was Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. This book was okay. It was fun because I hadn't read a fantasy in so long. I'd read all the Daisy Hates books and the Magnolia Parks books, you know, so I had a big break from fantasy. So going into it, it was fun to kind of switch everything. And this book was good, but there wasn't much of a plot. Like, I felt like there was stuff happening, but nothing was happening. Doesn't make sense, but that's like the best way I can describe it. I rated this 3.5 stars. I read it quickly, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't the best fantasy book I've ever read. Take that how you will. I still kind of want to go into the next book because I'm interested to see what happens, but it was just like a average first fantasy book of a series. 3.5 stars. The next fantasy book I went into was actually a recommendation from Sarah. She really enjoyed this book and I bought it because of her. I agree. These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan, I adored this book. It was so fun. It was fast paced. Stephanie Garber put like a comment. So I already had some high expectations going into the book. 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It's a duology, which honestly I was kind of sad to hear about because I loved the characters so much and I wanted so much more, but it ended good, you know? So this was the first book, really enjoyed it, 4.5 stars. I didn't own the second book. So the next book I went into was Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller, I think is how you say her name. This book was so fun. I don't think I've ever read a pirate book before. Like fantasy book, romance book. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It was so fast and it was funny. I was laughing so many times. It's not big, so I feel like if you're worried about committing to a large fantasy book, this is a good one to start with because it gives you that fantasy feeling, but it's not long. It's not 6 books long, you know? So this is also a series. I had the first 2 books. I think there's a third book, but I don't know if there's more. And I don't even know if the third book is like still the same character. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But 4.5 stars / 4.75. It was so close to a 5-star. I just could not give it that top tier because when I compare it to other 5 stars, it just isn't there for me. This book, I haven't thought about it a lot since I finished it. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh my God, I loved this book. I laughed so much, but it's not a book that I think about every day or every week. So Daughter of the Pirate King, 4.5 to like 4.75. I hate doing the points, but it's the best I can do. I loved it so much. I went into Daughter of the Siren Queen after that. Same thing. This book was fun. I think I enjoyed the first book a little bit more. I can't really tell you why. I don't know. I think it was just something. I'm not sure. I ended up rating this one 4 stars, just on the dot. I didn't really give it a point or anything like that. Again, really enjoyed this book. It gave me more of that like romance aspect, more action, summed up the story. That's about it. Highly recommend these books though, because they're very funny and like exciting. So when I was talking about these Hollow Vows, I had mentioned I had not like bought the second book yet. So that's why I went into Daughter of the Pirate King. And once I finished that one, I was like, honestly, I just want to go into the next book for Daughter of the Pirate King. So I had ordered the second book to these Hollow Vows when I had 5 chapters left. But it did not arrive until I had already started Daughter of the Pirate King. So I read Daughter of the Pirate King, Daughter of the Siren Queen. Then I went back into the These Hollow Vows kind of realm, if you will, and read These Twisted Bonds. Still loved this book. I want to say when I started this book about halfway through is when I was having a rough time, about like 2.5 weeks ago. So it took me a lot longer to get through this book, and I did enjoy it. I listened to some of it on audiobook. I actually finished up my March hours of audiobook on Spotify with this book because it was doing puzzles. So sorry, I have to look at my rating because I can't really remember. I rated this 4 stars. I really enjoy the first books of series, I feel like, the most, because like I'm learning the characters and I get a lot more attached, whereas like for a duology I kind of have to like pull myself away because I'm like, okay, you're not gonna see these people anymore, this is the end of their story, that kind of thing. And a lot of that high impact, like the climax, has already kind of happened, and this was kind of coming down from that. There was still action. I just think I loved the like slow burn love triangle thing in the first book. But this book was really fun too. I obviously still recommend it. These Hollow Vows, These Twisted Bonds, again, it's only a duology. They're not super big compared to other fantasy books. So if you want a good fantasy series that's not a big commitment, this is another one I would recommend. It was fun. You get the romance, but you also get like the very action-y parts of the story. All right, I had to switch out my battery, so hopefully like I didn't move you at all, but we have 2 more books to talk about. After I finished all those fantasy books, I wanted kind of something different, so I went into a romance book. I chose to read Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I had read Icebreaker, I think sometime in January, if I'm remembering correctly, and it was in a reading vlog, so I'll put that in the iCard as well, because I did enjoy that book. I actually enjoyed Icebreaker more than Wildfire. I still liked the romance, the storyline. It just wasn't anything crazy to me. It wasn't something that I was crying or I was super happy. Like, it was just like, okay, I'm reading a romance book. So Wildfire ended up rating 3 stars. I still recommend the books, like if you want something cutesy. They're just not kid appropriate. And I know I mentioned that when I talk about Icebreaker, but they look like they would be young adult romance. They aren't. So if you're not used to that heavy spice, the heavy romance, these might be a lot for you. This book I felt like was a little bit more subtle than Icebreaker, but I could be wrong on that. I did enjoy this. I enjoyed the characters in this book. I feel like the guy was portrayed really well with like being anxious and shy. Like, it wasn't the girl, it was the guy that was more self-conscious about himself, which I liked seeing that because it's not usually that way. And the girl was more outgoing, but she still had her doubts as well. It does talk about like family drama / issues, things that have happened in their past. I really like how Hannah Grace discusses topics like that. Like, it's not all happy sunshine rainbows. There are other aspects of the book that do happen in real life. So I did enjoy that. I gave it 3 stars. Would I read it again? Probably not, but I'm glad I read it. Got it off my shelf. Okay, we have one more book, which I actually finished 2 days ago when I was talking about it. This book, again, I don't know why I went into a thriller, but that's what I chose. I just figured I haven't read a thriller since about October time last year, and I had just picked up this book. Again, I saw Sarah pick this book up, so honestly, she just posted a photo on Instagram that she had this book in her hand, so I was like, okay, I'll go buy it. So I picked it up. First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This book, I had no idea what it was about going into it. I knew it was like a girl that pretends to be someone that's not even alive. Like, she basically, I don't want to say undercover because that's a bad term for it, but she kind of is. Like, she works for this boss and she has to pretend to be different people. So she's gone all around, like, I think she's like located in the South maybe. She goes and she does these jobs pretending to be different people. So it's very fun. It's very cool. It just was not the best thriller I've ever read. I felt like the plot twist didn't really surprise me too much. Like, I was like, oh, I didn't really think about that, but I wasn't really trying to think about it. And it was cool. Again, I hadn't read a thriller in a very long time, so I liked that it was different. I ended up rating it 3.5 stars. It's better than some thrillers I read, but it's not the top by any means. I still would recommend it because it's cool and I really liked her writing. I liked the plot point. Like, it's not a plot that I've read where she's trying to pretend to be different people. I have never read something like that and I found it interesting. So this was the last book I read in March, a thriller book. So I'm kind of glad because I hadn't read one in a while. Let's show you all the books and my overall thoughts and we'll end out this video. These are all the books I read in March. I felt like it was a good mix. I had some romance. Oh no. Okay, sorry if this moved you. I think it did, but overall, I like the genre of books I read this month. It was not bad. 10 books is not bad by any means. I honestly thought it was gonna be less than that. I don't know what April's gonna look like. I did just post my choosing my books for April, so if you wanna see that video, I'll link that one. And it's kind of crazy. Go watch that video because I felt like it was very ironic with some of the things that happened and some of the books that were chosen. But I'm not sure how April's gonna go. I'm gonna go into it with a positive mindset. I'm not gonna force myself to read because I don't want to get into a slump. Right now, I'm not really interested in opening a book and starting one. Maybe that will change. Maybe I'll even start one tonight. I'm not sure. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you read any of these books and have any opinions, let me know. If you have any recommendations based on the books I read, let us know. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you in my next video. Bye.